Hi, my name is Chloe Israel, and this semester I conducted a research study about remote learning due to COVID-19. The question I was trying to answer is how did college students going from in-person learning to remote learning due to COVID-19 affect students' GPA and comprehension of the content? So for my study, I sent out a survey asking a series of questions that could be factors of a GPA change from the beginning to the end of the spring semester. Because of time, I did not get a very large sample size, and this allowed me to come to the conclusion that my hypothesis could not be supported through my research study. My hypothesis is because of COVID-19 and college education being moved online, it has affected students' grades poorly and made their comprehension of the material worse. The reason I believe that this hypothesis is true is because even with all the technological benefits of being online, the research has shown over and over again that students learn significantly better in person and also not in the middle of a pandemic. To help support my hypothesis, I decided to look back at cited literature. The goal of this specific research journal was to see the causal impact of the pandemic on college students, and the results were mostly negative. Some of the stats they found were 13% of students had delayed graduation, 40% lost a job or internship, 29% are expected to earn less by the age of 35, and 25% of students increased their study time, while 25% of students decreased their study time. This research article also said that students with lower income settings were less likely to be successful in the online format. Another journal article tracked K through 12's learning and transition to online learning. In general, they found that there was a decline in academic performance of all ages K through 12. While that isn't college students, that is saying that this transition to moving online is affecting everybody who is being educated. Another thing that they found was that teachers were lessening the amount of assessments they were giving, and a big reason for this was because teachers either didn't know how to assess them online or they were worried about students being able to cheat and that they weren't able to monitor them while they were being assessed. Another journal article also says the same thing about assessments. It says that teachers are unsure of how to assess students fairly, and they're worried about getting a fair reading of how the student is actually doing in the class because cheating is such a prominent issue with online learning. Another site says that there is an increase of mental health issues because of the pandemic. And with an increase in these mental health issues, such as anxiety and depression, that is decreasing students' school performance, whether that's because they're distracted or just because they have so many overwhelming mental issues that they can't keep their schoolwork in the forefront of their mind. So, for my study, I found participants that were 18 years and older and who also were in college and went remote during the spring semester of 2020 due to COVID. I recruited people for my survey through social media and through the Eureka College email. I ended up with 41 participants that were valid, and my survey took 10 minutes on Google Forms. Anybody who took my survey then got entered into a drawing to win a $15 Starbucks gift card. For my results, I decided to use a multiple regressions equation. For my y variable, I used GPA difference, which is also the dependent variable. And then for my x variable, or the independent variables, I used my 8 questions from my survey. This chart represents my independent variables. And as you can see, the first variable was question 1, which has an average of 2.4. And the question is, on a scale from 1 to 5, how difficult was the transition of learning in person to learning online? So the average is 2.4, which means that people are slightly closer to it being a difficult transition. The second question is, on a scale from 1 to 5, did you feel more stress when going remote? The average was 2.1, so people are also on more of the side of feeling more stressed when moving online. My third variable or question is, on a scale from 1 to 5, do you feel like you learned all the material you were supposed to while being remote? This one had an average of 3.8, and this is closer to the side of I learned nothing when going remote, which isn't good. Then my fourth variable or question is, on a scale from 1 to 5, did you get more distracted from your schoolwork when going remote? And this had an average of 1.9, which is closer to the side of I got very distracted. So it seems that people were getting more distracted because of being online. My next question was, on a scale from 1 to 5, did you ever cheat on assignments or exams since going remote? This has an average of 3, so people were in the middle of cheating and not cheating. And then my next question, so Q6, is, on a scale from 1 to 5, do you think implementing technology that help prevent cheating would help you learn better? And this averaged 3.4, which means most people were a little more on the side of it not being very helpful. My last question is, on a scale from 1 to 5, once you graduate, do you feel that going remote has affected your knowledge for your future career? And this had an average of 2.5, which is in the middle, but it is closer to the side of it has very much affected my knowledge. So it seems that most of my variables are pretty close to the middle, and that the ones that are most significant are number 3 and number 4, which are people were closer to not learning anything, and people were closer to getting very distracted while being online. This scatter plot represents my y variable, which is GPA difference. From the chart, you can see that there's a big range of people's GPA differences. Some people's increase while others decrease significantly. And then you see that there's some that are right on that line where there's hardly any change in their GPA. The average of GPA difference ended up being negative 0.01. This is not a very significant amount at all, and this is likely due to the wide variance of data points and because of my very low sample size. By putting my data in JASP, I was able to find that my p-value for my data set equals 0.184, which is less than my r-squared value of 0.278. Because my p-value is less than my r-squared value, that means that I have to reject my hypothesis. This means that in my study, there are no significant factors relating to GPA difference in the spring of 2020 semester. This does not mean that my hypothesis is not true. It just means that because of my limited time and small sample size, my study does not support my hypothesis. Thanks for listening, and feel free to ask any questions that you please. This is my works cited. of all the journal articles that I found relating to my study. Thanks again!